You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast.
Now we have 10 NAFDAC certified products from food to personal care to even pharmaceuticals. Because the coconut is such a gift, you really can play across value chains like that. Lagos is the largest producer of coconuts in Nigeria, and Nigeria is the largest consumer of coconut products on the continent. And the truth is, many businesses sort of face the same challenges, but how we respond to it is how we not just survive, but thrive. The trajectory is clear. This is a $390 billion business globally.
Stay tuned as we bring you inspiring people who are unlocking Africa's economic potential. You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast with your host, Tessa Adamu.
Welcome to the Unlocking Africa podcast, where we find amazing people who are doing amazing things to unlock Africa's economic potential. Today, we have another special guest. We have Ebun Feludu, who is the founder, CEO of Kokari Coconuts Company, which is an integrated coconut processing company that serves the food, cosmetic, and pharmaceutical markets in Nigeria and beyond. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Tessa. I am doing great, and I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you on the podcast. It's a company which I've read a lot about, heard a lot about, and I'm looking forward to getting into the conversation. I'm not sure if you've listened to the podcast before, but I like to start from the beginning, so I was hoping you could introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about Ebun.
Okay, well, my name is Ebun Feludu, mother of two princes, happily married, like I say, to the last prince of the Niger Delta. I also call myself the chief coconut cracker at Kokari Coconuts Company. And I have a long history with making things. Like, I love the journey of being able to create. I think that is like one of the gifts that God has given us all, the ability to create. And I actually went into the coconut space because I was looking for a solution for my own challenge. It was lactose intolerance. 80% of Africans are lactose intolerant.
Yes.
And I'm one of them.
Me too.
Yeah, I had a really horrible reaction to milk in December 2015. And, I decided then that, listen, I'm not going to keep going through this torture and this pain that comes with lactose intolerance. And so I started playing with coconut milk. And gradually it became something that we offered to guests who came visiting. And then it occurred to me that, listen, the coffee shops in Lagos may also need plant-based milk for their clientele. And I approached Neo Cafe at the time, and they said, absolutely, we do actually need a plant-based milk. And that was like our first gig at Kokari. We were then called Jam the Coconut Food Company. We rebranded last year to Kokari. And so started with coconut milk to Neo Cafe, and then now we have 10 NAFDAC certified products from food to personal care to even pharmaceuticals. So that's our story. That's the story of me a little bit, and a bit of Kokari as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I love the name, the Chief Coconut Cracker, which is brilliant. Yep. Great branding. Well done.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, you have a long history of making, and you also detailed what inspired you to start Kokari Coconuts. So I guess from your personal perspective, how has the journey been so far, from starting in your kitchen to becoming a major player in the coconut processing industry in Nigeria?
It's been patient. It's so funny. Like, we had an event at Kokari Cafe for Women's Day last weekend, and we were talking about people who are born like myself on January 14th and how we're often sort of giving this double-edged sword of a gift that is being able to do many things. And it took me a while to be able to get to that place of saying, okay, let's focus on one gift. And I'm glad that I did in 2016. I decided then that I was going to focus essentially on coconuts. And it's been maybe not slow. It's been 8 years, right? And a lot has happened in 8 years. But if I went in with the same energies as I had done previous things, maybe I wouldn't have lasted this long. So it's been patient. It's been long and patient, but also very rewarding as well, because the joys of actually being able to create products for people from the time they wake up in the morning to the time they go to bed at night. All these products from what I call the world's number one superfood. It's been a joy to sort of share that delight with people and that solution with people. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, perfect. As you mentioned, the journey has been patient and you've had a focus on one gift, which is coconuts. But you do have a focus on three distinct markets, which is food, cosmetics, and pharmaceuticals. Is there a reason why you specifically targeted those markets?
Well, like I said, once I got into sort of exploring what I could create from coconuts, I decided, listen, I want to be a master's master in this thing. And so I went off to the south of India.
Yes.
And I had like an immersion program there. And I learned about the entire value chain. I worked on farms. I worked with people who were using the husks for different things. I worked with people who were using the shells to make activated charcoal and things like that. So that sort of broad spectrum was my baseline inspiration. And then came back home to say, okay, so this is what is possible. And because the coconut is such a gift, you really can play across value chains like that. And the truth is, you earn more when you take more out of the coconut.
Yes.
Because the coconut is not a cheap raw material. It's, pretty pricey. So when you get it and you're able to use every part of it, then you're able to earn a lot more revenue for the company and a lot more value to people. So I think that was like the driving inspiration. So it was from my immersion program in India, and then just obviously trying to see how we could make the best out of the raw material in our hands.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So going back to your point in terms of the journey has been patient. So during this patient journey, what challenges have you faced trying to break into those markets, I guess, in the early days as a new entrant?
We were very lucky, actually, as a new entrant, because first of all, traditionally, coconuts are used as the first sort of oil that you balm a baby with at a baby's birth,
Yes.
right? So traditionally, even in Isaleko, a lot of the snacks are coconut snacks. Lagos is the largest producer of coconuts in Nigeria, and Nigeria is the largest consumer of coconut products on the continent. So that's there. But then there's also how the West also did a great job in promoting coconut as a superfood. So that also sort of helped to get these products into the market and sort of have acceptance. But because there weren't many innovators, many players in the space, it was quite easy for us to sort of get mind share and market share, at the time that we started. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Fantastic, it does. So, as you said, there weren't many innovators within the space. So, as a new entrant, you probably didn't face some of the challenges that you might have anticipated. But whilst doing my research and reading, I saw that you'd have faced one major challenge during your journey, which I believe you were on the brink of bankruptcy due to non-payment by a major customer.
Absolutely. Who we shall leave unnamed.
Of course.
Who shall remain unnamed.
Of course.
Yeah, so that was a challenge. So maybe that wasn't such a challenge in the beginning, it was more sort of in the later stages. And I guess other challenges were things like access to raw material, which again, with every challenge that we faced, we created a solution. Actually, from the very beginning, I knew that we had to go into farming if we wanted this to be a long-term concern. And so we started farming 2 years ago. And regarding the non-payment, we also created a solution by sort of designing our own distribution solution and also focusing a lot more on export. So that was sort of our response to that. But as a business person, when it comes to challenges, when you're bitten by the bug of, hey, this looks like a great idea, I want to do this thing. All you see, if you are sort of like a true entrepreneur, all you see is, the path to greatness, right?
Yes.
Not all the challenges in that moment when you're bit by that bug, you probably wouldn't do it. As a true entrepreneur, if you're an optimistic, like myself, entrepreneur, all you see is the path to gold. But truly, a business person will always face challenges. They'll always face challenges. And so for me, every challenge is just an opportunity to innovate. I've come to sort of embrace challenges in that way. This is an opportunity for growth, and this is an opportunity to innovate. And that I've come to sort of develop that muscle over time, because that is the only way to thrive as a business person. Because if every time a challenge comes your way, you implode, you will not be able to survive in this terrain or any terrain.
I agree.
Yeah, so there are challenges. There will always be challenges. I mean, we generate our own power. This is true to every business. We generate our own electricity. Many times you have to supply your own water. This is true to every business, right? Sometimes you have a high turnover of staff. Sometimes as a small business, you don't have the capacity to be able to hire the kind of staff who can deliver at the kind of level that you want. And then you have to train and train and train. And so these are all sort of different challenges that come with business. But being an entrepreneur means that you are creating solutions. You are innovating around every challenge. Yeah, and that's basically what we do.
Fantastic. So you mentioned that as an entrepreneur, you're always optimistic and a challenge is an opportunity to innovate. So if you look at the challenges, are there any specific lessons that you learned from this experience that you've taken forward?
I think it's probably what I've said, which is, in that dark place, in that very challenging dark place, remember that there's a huge opportunity to leverage on. And the truth is, many businesses sort of face the same challenges. I'm not the only person that particular client was owing, but how we respond to it is really how we not just survive, but thrive, how we have leverage. So being able to quickly respond to that challenge meant that we had leverage. So I think that would be the lesson when if as an entrepreneur, when you experience a challenge, embrace it as an opportunity to tinker with the situation and create leverage that will actually even make you do better than your competitors.
Fantastic. So if we look at the innovations that came from the challenges, can you share more about the innovative solutions Kokari has developed to address some of the challenges within the agriculture value chain?
One of the challenges, for instance, that I will speak to is the raw material. The demand, when we started, the demand for coconuts wasn't that high for the raw material. It wasn't as high as it is today. But we projected and we watched the trend, and we knew that going by this trend, the price of the raw material is going to become so prohibitive, it will become a bit difficult to produce. And so we very quickly began investing in primary production in the farming bit of the business. And we also designed a way so that, because coconuts are so long-term, you plant it, you're not going to harvest anything for at least 5 years. So we had to innovate around how do we make sure that this land is profitable even in the short term. And so we started to teach farmers how to intercrop with other crops that would benefit the coconut trees and also benefit the farmers. So that gives them revenue, in the short term, and also created a way to be able to offtake from those farmers. So that was one innovation to a challenge that we developed.
Brilliant. So you mentioned you started investing in primary production of coconut. So in the initial stages, how did you go about forming relationships with farmers and investing in farms to strengthen this value chain?
We started with a lot of help from people who were already in primary production. And what we did was we simply adopted a community, and they're basically a community of farmers, right? And so we showed them all the benefits in the value chain and basically started training and working with them in that way.
Brilliant, brilliant. So as you mentioned, I'm assuming a lot of work is done in educating and training the farmers in some of the modern agriculture technologies and techniques.
Absolutely. And this is where I have to shout out to GIZ and the SAYS program. And they've been incredibly supportive of our work on the farm, being able to have more seedlings for farmers and setting up nurseries, and things like that. They've been phenomenal, in their support to us. So we have support. So that's helped us, along the way as well.
Which I guess leads to my next question in terms of with the work that you're doing, you do operate within a ecosystem. So how key are partnerships with regards to the work that you're doing and what you're trying to achieve?
Absolutely. I mean, we do a lot of impact work, and we understand that we within the organization have limitations. And we basically are in constant pursuit of partnerships that will aid our work, because we will go a lot faster when we work together. And there are people out there who are looking for people like us that they can collaborate with to make even bigger impact. And so people like PFS, Partners in Food Solutions, they're a US-based NGO. They've been incredibly supportive of our work. The SAYS program under GIZ has been incredibly supportive of our work. GAIN has been very supportive of our work. They supported us to actually put a borehole on the farm, which was very critical to make sure that we had water on the farm all year round, not just in the rainy season. NEPC has supported us because they've recognized our brand and our products as an export-ready product. And so they supported us with a grant to be able to get the products out there. And we've had a lot of support. And so those partnerships are key, and they've launched us forward. They've pushed us forward by one partnership could move us forward by 5 years, as opposed to if we were trying to do this work on our own. So the partnerships are absolutely key and critical, and we couldn't be more grateful for the opportunities. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, as you detailed, you are working with quite a number of development institutions. And I guess from my experience working with these organizations, sustainability is usually a key requirement or remit in terms of the delivery. So, in terms of the work you're doing, what importance do you place in terms of sustainability in Kokari Coconuts operations and the work that you're doing?
I love the question. I'm actually a student of sustainable development practice at university.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In one hat. In the other hat, I also lecture on industry at the University of Ibadan as well. So it's key, right? I was having a conversation with I should have mentioned the Hershey Company. They're one of our partners and incredible supporters as well. I was in a session with them last week, and I was talking about the future of business and basically that balance between people and planet, and businesses and economies. Now more than ever, the generation that is coming into the market now, they are very clear about the kind of products they want to consume. If there's no sustainability in the organization, they will boycott, right? And there's a significant number of them now that we need to pay attention. When I listen to my children, they tell me about, okay, and these are teenagers, right? How is this equipment affecting the planet? Are there other options that could be better suited to the planet, and things like that? If they're asking me those kind of questions now, when they have the naira and dollars to spend, they will spend the naira and dollars on those organizations who focus on sustainability. And then when we look at the work we do on the farm, our job with the farmers is to make sure that they learn the best practices for planting the coconuts, and then we offtake from them. So that is a wonderful balance between, the community and the people and the enterprise. So sustain, and also what we do with the coconuts, we make sure that we add value to every part. So there's zero waste in the nuts that come into our processing facilities. So we are ensconced by sustainability in sort of every part of our operations at Kokari Coconuts and Company. It's very critical to us, and it's very critical to the future.
Fantastic. That's something I love to hear. Is there a delicate balance between meeting the sustainable goals that you have whilst trying to source coconuts of a high quality that meet the company's standards for processing? Or do the two kind of easily coexist?
I think they do easily coexist because, like I said, processing the entire nut, that is in itself part of processing, because you're putting zero waste into the environment. You're getting more out of one raw material than less, which means there's sort of, you're optimizing the processing there to be able to get, a lot of resources that are useful for people. But also because we work with farmers from the ground up, we're able to share those sustainability practices with them and make sure that we support them. We have a very strong entomology team, so we're able to support the farmers to produce healthy trees and have healthy sort of farming practices. And so, yeah, that's very helpful. So the farmers we work with, our farm, and the network that we have helps us to be able to have those good quality raw materials.
Brilliant, brilliant. So if we look at sustainability in terms of the sustainable growth of the company, are there any specific strategies that you've used to maintain the competitiveness in the market while also ensuring there's a sustainable growth for Kokari coconuts?
One of the strategies is to be responsive. We look at what people's needs are. We understand our customer is the conscious consumer. That's our customer. And then looking at the raw materials in our hands, how can we make it better for the consumer? So for instance, we have a range of oils like the coconut lemongrass, coconut lavender oils. All of those oils are a response to the feedback from the consumer who have said things like, oh, I know that I should use coconut oil for my skin. I know that it's safer for me because of breast cancer and all of that, but I don't want to smell like coconuts. And so we went into innovation to be able to respond to them. And it's been such a wonderful match in terms of solution to the actual feedback of the customers. So yeah, so we're constantly innovating to make sure that we meet the needs of that conscious consumer.
Thank you for that. So as you mentioned, you're responsive to the consumer and that has been key to the company's growth. So with that growth, what markets are you currently operating or exporting to?
So we're in Nigeria, we're in the US, we're in the UK, we're in Rwanda, we're in Kenya, and we're constantly looking for new markets to enter into and to even take a bit more market share in those markets where we're in already.
Fantastic. And I look forward to seeing you achieve that. So could you share some insights into, I guess, your international expansion strategy or some of the challenges or successes that you've had in entering new markets?
Once again, I want to do a shout out to Fidelity Bank, who have now organized 2 international trade shows funded and supported by them, one in the UK in 2020 and another in the US, Houston, in 2023. And through those trade shows, we've been able to sort of get new buyers we've had a really good relationship with, and that's aided our expansion plan. But it doesn't stop there. We also have reps in all of these countries who basically go and look for new markets for us as well.
I guess a key component of expansion is access to capital. As a SME, how difficult has it been to access funding to scale your business and expand to new markets?
Yeah, that has been a challenge or an opportunity.
Definitely.
But this is always my sort of position, right? When there is a good product, money will come to it. So, for instance, we had a purchase order come in at a time where we were dealing with several other orders. And so we didn't actually have the cash to process the order. But because it was such a clear order, we had a purchase order, it was signed, it was a solid document, we were able to get funding for it. So I concern myself more with market access than funding because I know that when the access to the market is established, the funds will come. So that's my approach to funding.
That's a great way to approach it. So I guess keeping on the theme of access to capital and cash, I know currently within several markets we're seeing devaluation of currency and shortage of foreign exchange. You're headquartered in Nigeria.
Mhm.
How is this impacted on, I guess, your manufacturing inputs and material costs, particularly with the weakening of the naira against the dollar, pound?
It's one of the reasons why we are also exploring the export market more because every trade show we've attended anywhere in the world, there's such a huge love for our products. And sort of establishing those export routes to those markets is really one of the ways that we deal with this. And I think we do a lot more B2B now. locally. And then in terms of our retail products, we like to do more exports. And so by earning foreign currency, we're able to sort of hedge that difference with the high cost of production.
I guess this circles back to what you said earlier. With these challenges, usually comes new ideas and trends. So, if we look at the trends, are there any exciting trends that you're seeing with regards to the demand for coconut products, both locally and globally?
Generally, the population of conscious consumers keeps increasing. And conscious consumers, these are people going for things like nuts, and healthy oils and fruits and things like that. And so the trajectory is clear. This is a $390 billion business globally by 2050. So the numbers aren't going down, they're going up. And so the question is, how do we collide, or how do we find these customers who demand these healthy products so that the opportunities continue to increase as we've seen the projections?
Brilliant. So, how would you say you go about adapting the way you operate to these trends, to ensure that you remain competitive and also relevant in the market? Obviously, it's a fast moving market that you're operating in. How do you keep ahead of these trends?
I think it's by listening, and it's by building a community. And this is what we've always done. We've always listened. Last year, we opened our first Kokari Experience Center called Kokari Cafe, and we're planning on doing many more of them. And the idea is people can walk in and buy their products right there, and also experience and learn how to use the products for sort of various things, right? And that makes our community closer to us. It brings them closer. It allows for us to hear them and get direct feedback, and also to make sales directly to the consumer. That is, I think, one of our unique selling points. It's that sense of community. Last weekend, we had a notable media personality come in for the Women's Day event because, women are very central to us at Kokari. 80% of the team are women, and women are the ones who really make the decisions for what is consumed in the home of that conscious consumer. And so we had a Women's Day event, and it was just wonderful. We had all of these sort of wonderful treats made with our products and coconuts. And we gave women the opportunity to sort of share what was on their heart and also get feedback from them and just build a bond and a community. And I think that's one of our distinctive selling points and strategic points as a brand.
Thank you for sharing that. So, what did you hear from your customers that indicated there was a need for Kokari Cafe?
First off, we opened it in a place that was distant in a place where we had a lot of customers, but we didn't have a brand presence. And so we opened one there. And we also saw that this would allow us to be able to have cash flow as well,
Yes.
So we wouldn't be stuck with, the situations where we've been in the past. And and we've, from the feedback of the people, they're like, oh my God, I'm so grateful. I always have to go this far and that far to get this product. And we do also, in the location, we have a lot of strategic partners there as well. So that also helps.
Brilliant. So I guess if we move past the trends that you're seeing and look at the future, where do you see Nigeria, Africa in 5 years' time in terms of how it processes agricultural produce such as coconuts for multiple uses?
Already, right? Especially with interviews like these and podcasts like these, the industry has shown to people that, one coconut is about 800 naira. So if you have a coconut tree, or 10 or 20 or 30 on your farm, it could easily make you about 200,000, 300,000 naira a year if you're selling to companies like us. So I think the awareness continues to increase in terms of the viability of this cash crop for farmers and for people in the agricultural sort of value chain. And so the demand increases and the awareness increases and the opportunities, I see all of that increasing. And for us, I see us expanding our farm and bringing a lot more farmers into the value chain. Because as it is right now, we're exporting a lot of the wealth that should be localized with farmers in Nigeria. And our goal is to educate farmers here so that we can bring them into the value chain and bring wealth into their communities.
Quote of the week.
This is my last question, and it's very different to the rest of the questions. It's probably more in tune with how we started the conversation. So, as people, we often have quotes, mantras, African proverbs, or affirmations that keep us going when times are challenging or when times are good. Do you have one that you can share with us today?
Absolutely. Now over later.
Very succinct and powerful. Fantastic. Thank you. I like that one. So how do you live by that saying in your day-to-day work, your life?
I'm going to put it in from the simplest to the most complex. You're attending an event, you're with your girlfriends, and you're like, oh, let's take a photo. And it's like, oh, this person isn't here. Or basically there'll be 10 excuses. But if you don't take it at that point, you probably won't take it.
Very true.
Or like a similar situation we've had, you want to install solar and you've decided you want to install solar in your cafe. And you drag your feet. And at the first point where you wanted to do it, it was 3 million naira. You drag your feet for 3 weeks, it becomes 6 million naira. Now over later. You remember in a flash that you need to lock the kitchen door, right? Or your backyard door. And you feel like, let me, grab a drink or do this and do that. You forget. You leave the back door open as opposed to doing it in that moment. Especially in situations where you know you can in that moment. Nothing stops you from doing it in that moment. You do it now. Don't do it later. Do it now. Get it over with. It's done. The risk of it not happening increases the more time you waste sort of deliberating or dilly-dallying on a matter. If you can do it now, do it now. Now over later.
Amazing. What a way to close today's conversation. I was wondering if you had any closing remarks, final calls to action for people who are interested in Kokari coconuts or the Nigerian African coconut processing industry in general.
Well, we actually have created an opportunity for people to come into the value chain via Kokari, where we have a franchise model with organizations, with individuals, where you can take the Kokari brand and basically sell the products in your neck of the wood. Kokari actually means enough wealth, enough goodness, enough to go around. And it also means, in literal terms, it means let it be enough for everybody. It also means going global. So for us to be able to sort of circulate the wealth and the wellness in the coconut, we have all of these partnerships with organizations and communities where they say, okay, in my estate, I want to have a Kokari. I will have all the products there for people to buy. Because again, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night, we have a Kokari coconut product for you. And so people can reach out to me by email at kokaricompany.com. if they're interested in such a partnership.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It's clear that Kokari is at the forefront of shaping the Nigerian coconut industry through innovative solutions, dedication to quality, and also your commitment to locally sourcing. So great work, and it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tessa. Bye.
Thank you to everyone who has listened and stayed tuned to the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, or tell a friend about it. You can also rate, review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcast. Thank you, and see you next week for the Unlocking Africa podcast.